The wind howled through the canyon like a wounded creature, echoing across the endless sprawl of sunburned desert and jagged cliffs. Ranger Cole Maddox sat stiffly in the saddle, his silhouette cast long and lean by the setting sun. Dust clung to the hem of his faded duster, and the creak of his saddle was the only sound accompanying the whistle of air between twisted junipers. He wasn't supposed to be out this far. The southern rim of the preserve had been declared low priority after last year's wildfires swept the grazing fields bare. But something had pulled him here, a restlessness in his chest that wouldn't settle, a tug like a phantom hand gripping his collar. His mare, Bramble, shifted beneath him, snorting at a scent carried on the wind. Her ears flicked sharply forward. That's when he heard it. A cry, high-pitched, broken, almost human in its desperation. It vanished as quickly as it came, swallowed by the gusts. Cole straightened, listening hard. The desert didn't make sounds like that. Not unless something was dying. He dismounted, boots crunching against gravel and dried sage. The cry came again, clearer this time, thin, reedy, and soaked in grief. He moved fast, ducking under low branches and over dry washes, his hand brushing the butt of his holstered sidearm out of habit. Then he saw it. Curled beside a fallen mare, its tiny body trembling, was a baby Mustang. It couldn't have been more than a few days old, spindly legs, patchy dun coat, eyes wide with terror. Its muzzle was pressed to its mother's side, nudging, pawing as if trying to will her back to life. The mare was gone. Shot through the chest, judging by the gaping wound and the dried trail of blood leading from the brush. The buzzards hadn't found her yet, but the smell of death clung to the air. Cole's throat tightened. He took a step closer, slowly, his voice a whisper. Easy now. The foal startled, letting out another heart-wrenching cry. Its hooves scrambled against the dirt, trying to rise, failing. One leg looked bent wrong. Broken maybe. He crouched a few feet away, every movement deliberate. The foal stilled, panting. Its eyes locked onto his and something passed between them, not fear exactly but something close. A wordless plea. A shimmer of trust not yet broken. Cole's jaw clenched. Regulation was clear. Wild Mustangs were not to be interfered with unless they posed an immediate threat or were causing destruction. This foal was neither. But leaving it here was a death sentence. He rubbed his thumb over the ridge of his knuckles, the way he always did when old guilt crept in. The memory surfaced like a bruise, his daughter's last voicemail left 3 years ago. Asterisk, I think I found something, Dad. I'm going to check it out myself. You were right to worry. Asterisk, that was the last time he heard her voice. The search was called off after 2 weeks. No leads. No closure. He had failed her. But maybe he didn't have to fail this tiny creature. You shouldn't be alive, he murmured, more to himself than the foal. But you are. Carefully he shed his jacket, laying it over his arms like a sling. The foal flinched when he moved closer but didn't bolt. Its energy was nearly gone. When Cole lifted it, it didn't fight. It was lighter than he expected, fragile, all bone and tremble. The heat of its body soaked through the canvas of his coat. He could feel its shallow breaths, the flutter of its heart against his chest. Bramble stood nearby, watching with dark, quiet eyes. I'll get you help, he said softly. One way or another. As he mounted up with the foal nestled against him, a sudden rustle came from the brush behind. Bramble startled, stomping nervously. Cole's eyes snapped to the shadows. Nothing moved. But something was there. He scanned the scrub, hand poised near his radio. A shape shifted just beyond sight, large, low to the ground, watching. A predator? A person? Whatever it was, it didn't move closer. But it didn't leave either. He turned Bramble toward the trail, keeping one hand tight around the foal, the other near his weapon. The wind picked up again, carrying dust, memory, and something else, an unease that settled between his shoulders like weight. As he rode off, the foal let out one last soft cry. Behind them, unseen eyes followed. He didn't know what he'd just stepped into. But he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of something buried. Something dangerous. And somehow, it had found its way back to him. The cabin squatted like an old scar at the edge of the bluff, its tin roof rusted and warped, the porch leaning slightly westward as though weary from years of wind and solitude. Cole hadn't used it in months, hadn't needed to. But it was far enough off-grid, tucked beyond the reach of most maps and eyes, and that made it the only place safe enough for what he was about to do. He laid the foal down gently on the faded wool blanket he'd spread across the cabin floor. The little Mustang whimpered, its broken leg tucked awkwardly under its body. Its eyes were glassy but they tracked him, still searching, still pleading. Cole moved quickly, gathering what supplies he had. A rusted first aid box, a jar of honey for wounds, a bottle of water. He wasn't a vet, but he'd seen enough animal injuries over the years to know the basics. Still, this wasn't a deer or a wounded bird. This was a baby Mustang. Wild, fragile, grieving. As he poured water into a shallow tin bowl, he heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Too soon. He reached for the rifle, leaning by the door just as a voice called, sharp and familiar. "Don't shoot, it's just me." Cole exhaled, lowering the weapon. The door creaked open and Maya Benton stepped inside, squinting at the dim light. Her braid swung over one shoulder, blonde streaked with dust, eyes narrowed beneath the brim of her sun-faded ball cap. "What the hell are you doing all the way out here?" she asked, already walking in like she owned the place. "Dispatch said you checked in late." "That's not like you." He gestured wordlessly to the foal. Maya stopped cold. "Oh," she whispered, stepping closer. "Oh, Cole." Her tone softened, but her eyes sharpened. She knelt beside the animal, brushing back a strand of its tangled mane. "Legs bad. Left fore. And dehydrated. How long's it been without its dam?" "Found her dead. Probably a day or two." Foal was still trying to nurse. She swallowed hard. "You brought it here?" "I couldn't leave it. Regulations say." "Damn the regulations," he snapped. It was crying. He stopped himself, biting back the emotion that rose too easily. It was alone. Maya looked at him, then really looked. Her voice dropped. "This isn't just about the horse, is it?" He didn't answer. They worked in silence after that. Maya set the leg with makeshift splints and bandages, murmuring to the foal the way one might comfort a child. She tried to coax it to drink, but it turned its head away, listless. "Horses grieve, Cole," she said finally, straightening her back. "They feel lost like we do. Sometimes worse. This one might not want to stay alive." He knelt beside her, placing his hand gently on the foal's neck. Its skin was hot, tremoring beneath his fingers. "I named her Whisper," he said softly. She barely made a sound. Just a breath in the wind. Maya's eyes softened. "That's beautiful." Cole stood, pacing to the window. Outside, dusk was bleeding into full night, the sky streaked violet and rust. He thought of his daughter then. The last time he saw her, standing in that very window, 17 and fierce-eyed, pleading with him to take her seriously. "They're killing the Mustangs," she'd said. "Not just moving them. Killing them." He dismissed it as the wild theories of a bored teenager. He told her to leave it to the professionals. That was the last time they spoke face to face. Now, 3 years later, he was standing in the same place with blood on his hands and a Mustang foal at his feet. Maya was still kneeling by Whisper, stroking her gently. "You ever think," she said, not looking up, "that maybe fate has a way of circling back? Of putting things in your path that you ignored the first time?" "I don't believe in fate," he muttered. She turned to him, sharp. "Then believe in guilt. Or second chances. Whatever helps you not screw this up again." Her words hit like a slap, but he didn't flinch. He needed the truth more than comfort. He always had. That night, Cole stayed awake by the fireplace, Whisper nestled beside him under a patchwork quilt. The flames cast flickering shadows along the walls, turning the room into a shifting memory of the past. He tried not to think of his daughter's journal, or the empty grave they'd buried with no body. But the silence pressed in on him like a tide. He woke to the sound of hoofbeats. It was just past dawn, the horizon still blue with sleep. Cole stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. But what he saw made him freeze. Tracks. Not fresh but recent. A cluster of hoofprints, wild Mustangs, surrounding the cabin. Coming from the west, looping close to the porch, then back into the hills. He followed them in silence, scanning for signs. And that's when he found it. A scrap of paper, tacked to a splintered post beside the barn. At first he thought it was garbage, but as he peeled it off he saw the edges, worn, brittle, familiar. A photograph. His daughter. Maybe 15 in the picture, laughing as she leaned against the corral fence. One of her boots was untied, her eyes sparkling like they always had when she talked about the horses. But someone had drawn over it. A black silhouette, rough, hurried, of a Mustang's head scribbled across her face. Almost like a mask. Or a warning. Cole's heart thundered. His hands shook, but not from fear. From fury. From the terrible, rising certainty that someone out there knew exactly what had happened to her. That maybe she hadn't simply disappeared. Maybe she'd been erased. He stared out at the hills beyond the cabin. The brush whispered. The mountains watched. Inside, Whisper stirred and let out a low, aching sound, half cry, half breath. Cole clenched the photo in his fist. Whatever trail this foal had dragged him onto, it was no longer just about survival. It was about answers. And the dust, unsettled behind him, promised that someone was already following his footsteps. By the time the third day dawned, Whisper was standing, shakily, stubbornly, as if defying the brokenness stitched through her leg. Cole watched her from the porch, the foal framed by golden morning light spilling through the open cabin door. Every wobble of her stance stabbed a quiet ache into his chest. She should have died. She hadn't. Maya had returned to town the night before, leaving behind more medical supplies and a warning that didn't leave his mind. There's something else going on out here, Cole. Watch your back. The photograph of his daughter was still folded in his coat pocket, its corners worn soft from how often he pulled it out, stared, questioned. The drawing over her face, the black Mustang silhouette, had been deliberate. A message. But from whom? He hadn't told Maya about the tracks. Or the second sound he'd heard last night. Hooves, distant, then suddenly too close. No wild horse moved that quietly. Something was watching them. The wind shifted, carrying with it the familiar, dusty scent of the range, and something else. Smoke. Cole stepped off the porch, eyes narrowing. Thin threads of gray curled over the ridge line. Controlled burn, maybe. Or a signal. He saddled Bramble and led her westward, Whisper trailing behind like a ghost too fragile to resist following. She limped badly but refused to stay behind. He didn't stop her. They rode for hours, the land stretching out in undulating waves of sagebrush, canyon, and bone-dry gulches. Midway through a narrow pass, Bramble halted. That's when Cole heard it, low, rhythmic, like the breath of the earth itself. Hoofbeats. Dozens of them. Then they emerged. A herd of Mustangs cutting through the morning like a storm. Dust billowed around them, sunlight flashing off their coats. Chestnuts, paints, grays, and one massive black stallion at the front, his mane wild as a forest fire. Cole dismounted slowly, holding Whisper's halter. She stood frozen, ears flicked forward, heart pounding under his hand. The herd slowed as they approached, moving with purpose, not panic. The black stallion stared straight at Cole. Eyes deep. Intelligent. Knowing. He remembered that look. 3 years ago, his daughter had come home raving about a stallion just like this. Said it was different from the others. She claimed it followed her. Led her places. She called it haunt. Whisper let out a whinny, tentative, searching. The stallion stepped forward. Cole gripped the rifle slung across his back, not raising it, but feeling its weight like a question. The stallion moved closer still. Whisper nickered again, this time louder. The stallion stopped 3 paces away. And dipped his head. Not in aggression. In acknowledgement. Whisper limped forward and brushed her muzzle against his leg. The black stallion pressed his nose gently to her forehead. Cole watched, breath held. The herd surrounded them, creating a living circle of silence. He was inside it now, inside their space. Yet none of the Mustangs spooked. No ears pinned, no hooves stamped. Just the wind, the heat, and the sound of hearts beating. Then he saw her. A girl, maybe 20, standing on the ridge. Too far to make out clearly. But the posture, the tilt of the head, it carved ice into his spine. Emma, he whispered. But the figure vanished. He scrambled up the ridge, slipping on loose rock, calling her name. When he crested the rise, nothing was there. Just open desert stretching toward the mountains. No footprints. No sign she'd ever stood there. He turned back, but the herd was already moving on, flowing like water through the valley, Whisper limping alongside them. The black stallion glanced back once. And then they were gone. Back at the cabin, Cole replayed the moment 100 times. Had he imagined her? Could guilt twist memory so tightly it made ghosts walk? That night the scratching began. At first it was soft, like wind against wood. Then sharper. Deliberate. Cole rose with his rifle and flashlight, scanning the darkness outside. Nothing. Until he turned toward the barn. There, carved into the wooden planks, was a single word. Why? Fresh. Jagged. Still splintering. Cole backed away slowly. Someone was playing games. Or delivering warnings. The next morning Maya returned. Her eyes scanned his face before she said anything. You saw something. He didn't deny it. He showed her the carving, told her about the stallion, the figure on the ridge, the photograph. Maya's jaw tightened. You know what this means, right? I think someone's trying to lead me somewhere. Or trying to bury me before I get there. She nodded once. There's something you need to see. They drove 2 hours south, to an abandoned ranger outpost no longer marked on official maps. It sat beneath a bent cottonwood, its roof collapsed, walls tagged with graffiti. Maya led him into the back room, an old storage shed now full of damp boxes and mildew. Inside one of the crates was a folder, labeled, Wildlife Control, East Range Incidents. Cole flipped it open. Photos. Dozens of them. Bullet-ridden Mustangs. Tire tracks. Drone images of penned herds in unauthorized clearings. One picture stopped him cold. A girl in a tan jacket, back to the camera, reaching toward a black stallion. Emma. He scanned the accompanying report. Vague phrases. Trespassers spotted. No recovery necessary. Area deemed secure. I pulled this before it could be shredded, Maya said. They knew she was out there. They knew she saw something. Cole's hands trembled as he closed the folder. I'm not stopping, he said. I didn't think you would, she replied. Back at the cabin, the air was unnaturally still. Whisper wasn't there. Neither was the herd. Cole found only a single hoofprint in the dirt outside the barn, sharper, deeper than it should have been. And beside it, another word carved into the door. Remember. The wind returned that night. And with it, so did the howling. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the world was already on fire. Smoke curled from the eastern ridge like serpents twisting through the sky. The dry season had turned the landscape into kindling, and now someone, or something, had lit the match. Cole's boots pounded against the packed earth as he sprinted from the cabin toward the rising column of black. His heart thudded in rhythm with every step. The herd was out there. Whisper was out there. He mounted Bramble without a saddle, urging her forward with a single breathless command. She galloped hard, her hooves tearing into the trail as flames painted the horizon in swaths of crimson and gold. The fire was spreading fast. Too fast to be natural. This wasn't a lightning strike or an accident. It was a message. Maya's voice echoed in his mind from the night before. Asterisk, if they're covering tracks, they'll burn everything, including the truth. Asterisk. They'd spent hours going through the files she'd stolen. Names, coordinates, records that never should have existed. His daughter had found this years ago. She'd stumbled into something monstrous, and now he saw the full scope of what she'd tried to expose. Illegal roundups. Unlicensed contractors. Horses vanishing without reports. Emma hadn't vanished. She'd been silenced. The trail veered left, and Bramble skidded as Cole spotted a lone figure limping through the brush. Whisper. He dismounted mid-gallop, landing in a crouch and rushing toward her. Smoke clung to her coat. Her breathing was ragged, sides heaving. But she was alive. He reached for her halter. I've got you, girl. We're getting out. A branch cracked behind him. He turned sharply, rifle ready. A man emerged from the haze, sun-scorched hat, aviators, jaw tight beneath a week's worth of stubble. Not a ranger. Not a rancher. Contractor. Hired to round up. Or worse. Step away from the foal, the man said flatly. Cole's finger tensed on the trigger. Where's the herd? The man smiled without warmth. Ashes mostly. The fire behind him flickered, closer now. Cole stepped between Whisper and the man. She's injured. She's not going anywhere. She doesn't have to. You do. A click sounded behind Cole. A second man. Armed. They'd been followed. I know what you did, Cole said evenly. To the herds. To my daughter. The first man shrugged. Your daughter got too close to something bigger than her. It happens. Rage surged in Cole's veins, red and blinding. But Whisper's soft, frightened whinny tethered him back. He couldn't die here. Not yet. Not until the world knew. Before he could speak, a high-pitched whistle cut through the air. Then thunder. Not from the sky but the earth. A sound deeper than fire. Wilder than vengeance. The herd. Like a flood bursting from the canyon they came. Mustangs in full gallop, their hooves shattering the silence, led by the massive black stallion, Haunt. His eyes blazed like twin embers. He wasn't running from the fire. He was running through it. The men spun, shouting, too late. The stallion hit the first one like a battering ram, his hooves lashing out with terrifying precision. The second man fired, missed, then vanished beneath the crush of muscle and fury. Dust, fire, blood. Cole shielded Whisper with his body as the herd circled them like guardians. He looked into Haunt's eyes as the stallion came to a halt inches away, and saw her. Emma. Not flesh and blood but something more. Her face shimmered in the stallion's gaze, not ghostly, but memory made real. Her laugh. Her tears. Her purpose. She had loved the stallion. He was her message. He was her revenge. Cole dropped his rifle. By the time the fire crews arrived, the blaze had burned itself into a crescent, stopped not by luck but by instinct. The herd had moved as one, leading Whisper and Bramble and Cole down a rocky path away from the flames. No injuries. No fatalities aside from two unknown men whose presence could never be officially explained. The site where Emma's journal had been found years ago was unearthed again during cleanup. This time, deeper beneath the ash, they found bones. A boot. And a necklace Cole had given her when she was 13. He stared at it in his palm, the metal warm from the fire, but whole. The truth had been buried once. Not anymore. Maya stood beside him at the edge of the canyon days later, scanning the horizon as the herd galloped in the distance. Whisper stays with them now, she said. She's part of the wild. You did that. No, Cole replied. She did. They watched as Whisper kept pace with Haunt, no longer limping. A streak of silver against the green. The government inquiries would take time. The files Maya leaked were already sparking fury across networks and newspapers. Investigations had begun. Headlines would follow. But Cole didn't need headlines. He just needed peace. He walked to the edge of the ridge, pulled out the photograph, Emma smiling against a backdrop of wild wind and golden grass, and let it go. The wind carried it far, until it was nothing but a whisper in the sky. As he turned away, a gust of air brushed his cheek, warm, soft, like a breath. And in that moment he didn't feel haunted anymore. He felt home.